All right, last up this morning we have Gerry McCartney. Gerry is the system CIO for Purdue University and also the Vice President for Information Technology. And he's here talking to us today about kind of the view from the Purdue University CIO. So welcome to Gerry.
Thank you very much. And thank you for accommodating to Mike especially and Betsy to my silly schedule, because I think this is my third speaking time at this event, at this particular one. So I appreciate that very much. I want to just slightly different perspective, maybe, than what you've been listening to so far, is, the job of the CIO is to try and figure out where the puck is going to be 5 years from now or 10 years from now, and make sure the institution is positioned correctly to take advantage of that or to avoid the worst outcomes of it. So I begin with this. This is a picture of a classroom from the year 2000, printed in 1896. And there's a couple of interesting artifacts that you should be aware of. So how was this distributed? It was distributed as a premium in packets of cigars, because that's how you sold cigars. Before the tobacco manufacturers figured out that people actually wanted sports people on the cards or something like that, they would commission kind of thought pieces and then print them on little cards and insert them in the packets. And people would then hurry up and buy more cigars or cigarettes so they could find out what everything was going to be like in the year 2000 or whatever the sequence was. So there's a couple of things in there. And I'm going to make the case, and you can decide how compelling the case is, that the future of higher education is actually completely contingent on an effective, and we'll decide what effective means in there in a second, IT system, if you wish, in the broadest sense of the word of that. So let's just kick this off. So if you've been to one of my talks before, you've seen this picture before. I really like this picture. It's the University of Frankfurt in around 1350. And what's great about this picture is, even though it's from, let me see if I can do the math here, 7.5 centuries ago, you know immediately what it's a picture of. Can you think of any other professional or non-professional activity from 750 years ago, if I showed you a picture of it, that you'd know exactly what it was? I mean, maybe farming, but probably not. Just let's hold that thought there, because that's 1350, this is 2010, and the only difference is we have a little bit of diversity in the audience, because that's the only difference between the two. Just hold that thought there, because that's a particular problem for higher education. This is the Office of the Future from 1947, also familiar to people who've heard me speak before. How do we know it's the future? Because the future was characterized by being aerodynamic in 1947. Everything was aerodynamic. That's how you knew it was the future. Even, what's this gadget over here? Anybody? This is the class participation grade moment. It's a ticker tape machine, you see, because it was so far in the future, even the ticker tape machine would be aerodynamic. Now there's a problem right there about skating to where the puck is going to be. We extrapolate. We're really good at that. It's a bad tendency to get into, because we take a trend line and say, oh, well, clearly then in the future. And what we completely miss are phase shifts. No, we just turned right 100 years ago. Higher education benefits from the fact that we never turned right. We just kept going straight down the path we were on. So we kind of think that's humorous, because of course we'd never make a mistake like that. And then we look at this picture and we think that's humorous, because what was modern in 1895? Electricity was modern. Everything was going to be electric. So we'd wear somehow we'd grind up books and somehow they'd be converted into, I don't know, bits of books and then sent to the headphones and the students. Ha, 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 ha. So now we say, well, what's the classroom of the future going to look like? Well, there's the classroom of the future, which looks uncomfortably like the classroom of 1350, except that we don't have bits of plastic. Somehow we have magic projection screens on our desk. And that's kind of a problem, because that isn't really helpful at all. Or this kind of thing, because it's all going to be computer mediated and super duper. But still, unfortunately, we have desks. Still, unfortunately, they all point in the same direction. It's modern because, I don't know, it's all done in pastel hues. I have no idea what makes that picture modern. Well, and it's aerodynamic still, and there's electricity. You see, they weren't wrong, that's the point, right? They weren't wrong, they just kind of missed 98% of the change. So let's talk about, now play a little mind game here now. Let's just say things are going to be different in the future. There seems to be, there's a nice little subdiscipline in sociology that studies chronocentricity, which is the belief that the time you live in is the key time. And we all believe that. But let's just play a little game here now, because things do seem to be changing, and we can talk about what we mean by that. And we'll talk about 3 possibilities out of many. This is not meant to be exhaustive. This is just supposed to pull your brain in different ways. Many, many possibilities, but let's focus on 3, because they're kind of orthogonal to each other. Let's talk about a data-driven higher education experience. We kind of like that idea. We like the idea that I know a whole lot of stuff about you, and I can tune up what I need to give you precisely to meet your needs when you need them. So in its optimistic rendition, it's very much tuned to the individual. You get what you need when you need it. The side effects of that it's incredible, there are many, but 2 that I want to pick out are that it's highly fractured. In other words, we have 100 people in the room. We would, in this scenario, be getting 100 different experiences. There wouldn't be a common experience. And it's economically very stratified. What do I mean by that? I mean, the people that are best able to handle the hard stuff will get the hard stuff. That means the people who've previously been invested in will get material that will move them even further ahead of the people who are already behind. We may be okay with that. We may not be okay with it. Let's just hold that thought there for a second. A different model. New hotel. What's that all about? So I listened to the CIO of the Hilton hotels. I know we're not in the Hilton, Mike. Talking, this would have been about 9 months ago, about a new model Hilton has for, and he had an almost identical presentation to me. He said, Hilton hoteling hasn't changed as a way of doing business for 3 centuries. You go back 3 centuries ago, you kind of had a shingle outside, rooms or whatever. You were a tavern maybe or something like that. Somebody came in, you did a thing, there was some kind of transaction, you gave them a room, they paid you some money, they went away. There was really not much that changed until the 1970s. I didn't realize this. In the 1970s, you could call one phone number. The innovation was you could call one phone number and book a room in any hotel chain. Like you'd call the Hilton 800 number, and I'd say I need a room here. And you used to have to call the hotel before that. And then they developed this clearinghouse system. He foresees a time where you don't need to do any of that, that you just would go on a website, pick out the room that you want to go to. You would check in using your phone, 24 hours or whatever it was beforehand. I love the terminology here, that they would then download the payload to your phone, which tells you exactly where your room is. You then go to the hotel, you hold your phone in front of the door to your room, you go in, use the room, come out again. You never have to interact with anybody. All the transactions handled electronically. But where's his competition? Where's his competition? Is his competition Sheraton or something like that? Or is his competition Airbnb? Who seem to have got there ahead of him. And then the third one, co-branding, where we say, well, we're in the education business, but a whole pile of other people are in the education business as well. Legitimately, people like National Geographic, NPR, a lot of high-quality publishing houses, all think of themselves in one way or another of being in the education business. If we need a parallel maybe for some of the older folks in our room here, you think of like educational channels on television, and you think of things like Sesame Street, and what are the actual educational experiences that we think of? Like the Weather Channel. People learn a lot just watching the Weather Channel. How does that interact with other formal educational experiences? So let's just color those squares in a little bit. So this is what a data-driven thing looks like. So here at the bottom, here's the free service, all online, consume as much as you like. We're not going to certify you in anything because that costs money. But there's the material. If you want to read it, consume it, MOOCs, have at it. It's great. Plenty of parking, friendly greeters, and low, low prices. We step up a tier to a semi-residential program. Like you actually meet some people sometime. Maybe you go in once every 3 months to a classroom and sit with other people, or you meet an advisor, or you have some kind of an electronic relationship with somebody who's counseling you. There is some student content, and there is contact, and there is some sense of there being a lecture situation. And then the top one, which we would call the first class, and if I were to draw this pyramid as it actually should be drawn by volume and as it's delivered today, of course, it's an incredibly flat, it looks more like a fried egg than a pyramid, because there's a terribly small number of people in what will become, or perhaps is envisioned as this kind of first class. So you get all the advantages of the digital delivery, plus you get all this personalized attention. That's what many of our residential programs look like right now. The problem is our residential programs are extraordinarily expensive to deliver. Are we okay with this? I don't know. If this is true, what are the responsibilities of various institutions in here? That's just where's the puck going to be in 5 years problem. Do we know what this is? Now, remember, what was my second slide? My second path was the hoteling, right? Do we know what this is? Do we know what's going on here? Disney World, right? What's Disney selling? Experience. It's selling you an experience. It's selling you a fun time. And what do they throw in there as a piece of collateral to get that experience? They throw in a hotel room. Vegas figured this out years ago. We're a gambling place, you want to gamble here? We'll just give you a hotel room. Mr. Hilton is trying to sell you that service, for crying out loud, and this guy is giving it away for free. And in fact, what's this little girl wearing? What does well, it's more than a room key, in fact. It's got everything attached to it. It's got her place in line for rides. It's a complete superset of everything Mr. Hilton's CIO was advertising as a breakthrough for Hilton hotels. These people are already doing it. Wow, I now officially have a headache. So what's the first law of 42nd Street? You can't sell what somebody else is giving away for free. You can't sell what somebody else is giving away for free. Are we in this business? Are we in the hoteling business and we don't even know it? What is it that we do as institutions of higher education? At least from the undergraduate perspective. I know about the knowledge creation part, but the knowledge creation part then, we're reverting back to that first pyramid. Because the knowledge creation part lives just right up at the top of that pyramid. Most people involved in higher education aren't creating knowledge. They're teaching classes in community colleges. That's what they do. That's by numbers. That's what's happening. And then the third one, Stephen Gillen of the University of Oklahoma, teaching his US History Survey class in conjunction with the History Channel. Gosh. So what do our videos look like when we make videos? Vis-a-vis how people experience videos when they watch television. Our videos are either icky or horribly expensive because it takes a lot of money to make nice video. People think it takes a smartphone and a steady hand, right? Not quite true. If we're co-branding, who are we co-branding with? Who is in our space? I'm not asking you these questions because on the next slide I have the answers. I'm asking you these questions because when we think about investing in something like HUBhub, HUBzero, I should say, it's in exactly the context of this problem set. Where are we trying to get to here? What is it we do that makes us who we are? Either as a land-grant institution in the case of Purdue, an institution of higher education, a research institution. How do we see ourselves? For the IT people in the room who are far more comfortable with slides like this, because we're busy all the time. Don't bother me with that stuff. I got stuff to do, right? And as we heard in the previous talk, Steve, right? What if somebody else comes along in manner of Disney and says, it's all right, Mr. Hilton, you don't need to worry about any of that. We'll take care of that for you. Because we can do it at half the price you can do it at. Or worse, 1/10 of the price you can do it at. And you know what? Our product will be better than yours as well. Now, everybody's got a headache in the room. Because we're busy, and we take virtue from being busy. So there's a context. Let's just step aside for a second here, because all is not lost. Well, not completely. Here's a technology adoption curve, because there's some things here we can do to help ourselves. Here's a technology. You see, I used to teach MBA students, everything has to be simple. So a technology adoption curve is a very smooth function like that, right? Here are the early go-getters, the experimental people, highly expensive. Here's the main market enters, everything's great. Here's the end, the hangers-on, the people who still are buying ribbon for their IBM Selectric. You think I'm joking? Okay, so let's just put that there. And then I ask you this question. What is it that we care about? In doing our jobs in our institutions, what is it we care about? I hope the Purdue folks know the answer to this. I'd be incredibly frustrated if they don't. It's really very simple. It's not a trick question. We're a research institution. We're a land-grant institution, so we do 3 things. But research institutions do 2. They research and they teach. That's it. Land-grant institutions engage. Everything else is a cost of doing business. We don't exist so we can run payroll. We don't exist so we can run parking structures. We don't exist so that we can give out financial aid. We don't exist even so that we can have alumni. We exist to create knowledge and to disseminate that knowledge, to research and to teach. And as a land-grant institution, we engage. That's part of our responsibility. Everything else is just a cost of doing business. So if we're going to, and we know this, when does technology have its biggest impact? If you're an early successful adopter. That's when it has impact. I don't think we'd get a lot of gravy in our promotional literature. If you come to Purdue, we have aerodynamic equipment and electricity. No. If you're selling something, you've got to sell. If you're talking about technology, you've got to talk about stuff that's new and effective. And what are the 2 areas that we'd be concerned about around new and effective? Come on, help me out here. Thank you. Teaching and research. It's really like there's only one answer to any of these questions. It really is simple. So if we're going to embrace new technologies and take risks, which we should, we want to do it early in the cycle around things we care about. And around things we don't care about, well, I'm giving the next slide away. Because at the end of a product cycle, it's cheap and reliable. It's cheap and reliable because everybody understands it. There's piles of spare parts. There's a whole pile of people who know how to make it work. All your costs are low. Slightly used stuff is flooding onto the market. You can pick it up really cheap. So what should we have over here? If you were doing my job, not a trick question. All the stuff that isn't research and teaching and engagement, but to the extent that it's technology and engagement. Everything else comes over here. I want to wait until other people have knocked all the cost and all the risk out of the equation for me. Let me join right at the end when you're all dumping it. Because all I need to do is make sure it works. That's it. It's a pass-fail class. Does it work? If it works, we're good. Tick. Let's move on to the next one. Here are my graded assignments. And here's where I'm prepared to take some risk. So do we see where HUBzero is on this chart? It should be off and to the left. We should be, and we are, investing in it to try and move it to the middle. But in fact, just as a sidebar note, I would say this if the room was full of CIOs as well. CIOs all hover here. They wait till it's expensive and not path-breaking. Because that's what makes just the statistics of it. It's got to be most people because that's when most people buy, right? So just as a kind of matter of fact, you've got to be in that, most people have to be in that middle group. But that's actually the very worst place to be. If you miss it at the beginning, wait till the end, because there's no point in joining in the middle. This is where we want to be. And this is why we continue to make investments in HUBzero. among other things, because it directly touches, in this case, our research, but also our teaching activities. And so it's important to us. Everything else, I want to talk to Mr. Steve about, because I don't really care whether I do it or not. I shouldn't say that. But I really don't. It's like, who makes the light bulbs for our institution? I don't really care, as long as they work. I'm not in the light bulb manufacturing business. So we do this thing, and you see, what's this contingent on? What's the big risk in here? I'd ask Mike, but that's not fair. This is kind of an homage to you anyway, Mike, so. There's a key skill that technologists never respect. This is Gerry's little thesis, so I could easily be very wrong here. It's like the interrupting cow. You know, we have no respect for timing. Like technologists, they do this thing where, well, it's going to end up here, so let's just do it. Yeah, but is now the right time to do it? Because maybe we should have done it before, maybe we should wait 3 years. I'm not disputing the decision. We should do it when the timing is right. And that's something we often don't talk about. If it's available, let's do it. Remember in the 90s, it was great. The 90s will go down in history as the heyday of IT folks. Like, they were banging out new versions of everything, and it was always hardware and then the collateral software coming in behind it, and you had a 386 and then a 486 and then a Pentium, and it was like almost every year, ka-chung, ka-chung, ka-chung. And it was great because we were all like super busy, you know, that little chart with the up arrows and the down arrows. That was a great time for IT people. You just kind of, woo, you just get swept along in the heat of the moment. Now we've got an infrastructure that works. The thing we always said, wouldn't it be great if we had this? We've actually got it. We sit here, we're reading email for crying out loud. Nobody even thinks it's a novelty. You just do it. Everybody does it. Your third grade kid is doing it. And that's a problem for us. See, there's my little Gutenberg tweet. And there's the timing problem right there. Is that you come out with a brilliant technology and, gosh, just kind of missed it, right? Now, you can very legitimately argue back at me that the only reason everybody learned to read is because of Gutenberg's invention. So, you know, perhaps somebody just needed to go and clear a path through the minefield. But I put that there. And it's in that context we should be having, I hope we would be having these conversations. And so the last slide here is, you know, the thing on the 50-year-old picture up on the right there is, gosh, I wonder would they recognize what we do today as going to college? They probably would by walking into a classroom, because everything else is basically different. 50 years from now, will we be able to recognize a university or a place that awards degrees or a place that offers education at a higher level? And so we come to this like quote from Brian Andreas. And I wanted, you know, I know Mike is leaving. This is very sad. And one of the great things that Mike brought always into every conversation was this his engaged intellect, but an engaged imagination. And that's a problem for us right now. And if I could speak to you, I would say it's the most significant thing you can contribute to wherever you work, is an engaged imagination. Because, without saying this super out loud, a lot of the tasks that we're engaged in right now won't be here 5 or 10 or 15 years from now. And I don't know I can't put a stopwatch on that. I have no idea. I have an office, I have a book in my office that was written in 1976, and it was written for 6th graders, and it's called I Want to Be a Computer Operator. And it's a sensitively written book, which was part of a series. I want to be a lathe operator. I want to be an airline pilot. I want to be I want to be a computer operator. How's that working out for you? That job doesn't exist anymore. And that's the challenge here, because it's not that there's no work. There's piles and piles and piles of work. But the trick is to be doing the work that moves the institution forward. That's the challenge for us. I thank Mike because he's been a great colleague in that regard. Testing ideas, always testing ideas. And that's what we can all bring, is our experience, our awareness of what's likely to come. How do we take measured risks over on that left-hand side? How do we not feel emotionally burdened to go and buy something because everybody else has bought it in that big middle? And how can we have the discipline to wait till the end and say, you know what, card punch machines, now's the time to step in. I will also just tell you this other thing, by the way, that you may or may not be interested in, but why not? When I was teaching MBA students, they see all the glory and sexy stuff over on the left-hand side of that graph. But in fact, if you want to make money, you work over on the right-hand side. When the market is being vacated, your margins are huge. Because while you may choose to step into the market at that point, there's a whole pile of people who won't give up old stuff and will pay through the nose for it happily. That's just, you don't want to hear that ugly B-school stuff, right? So this is what HUBzero gives us. It gives us yet another play on the left-hand side of that graph. That's why it's important to us. And we want to confine all our activities to the left or the right-hand side and not be in the middle. We're trying to avoid that. And I want to, because I won't be here for Mike's, I don't know what speech you give, Mike. Speech? Yes. But shout out because, 98.73% of this is Mike McLennan and his effort that's got us here. I calculated that on the way down this morning, because I have a computer the size of a VAX 11780 in my smartphone. Now I am showing my age. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming to this. I hope you have a great rest of the day. I always enjoy this presentation here. And be sure to thank this guy as well, because he's done an awful lot for all of us. So thank you.